Sego. This is Big House here, Native American storyteller, but I also find myself being a story finder. And this is one of the stories that I was told as a child, but I've searched far and wide for an elder to repeat this story to me, but I find out all the elders have passed, and now my generation are the elders. What were they thinking? But this is one of the stories that, as a child, stopped me dead in my tracks, and I had many questions for months afterwards. So this is from a very reliable source. Take it with a grain of salt. This is a story as I remember it. You see, it happens several years ago, and I think this is back in the mid-40s, 1940 or so. But anyway, there was a man off the reservation who fell in love with one of the young Indian girls on the reservation. Now, the thing you have to know about Indian women is when they're younger, oh my goodness, they're like young Dolly Partons. They're incredible. They tend to kind of pork out or widen out a little bit as they grow older. But this girl was just absolutely drop dead gorgeous. And a gentleman who was about 26 years old fell in love with her and wanted to marry her. So he did the right thing and asked the girl's father if he could marry her. The girl's father said, well, she's 11 years old and she will not be able to make a decision, and you cannot ask her until she's 16. Well, the guy left and disappointed, and when the girl was about 14, she showed up missing off the reservation and without a trace. And it seemed to be that they investigated it, and at least the white men did, investigated, arrested him, took him in for a trial, but realized there was no evidence to convict him. Well, several months later, he's in the hotel drinking and bragging to some of his friends of how he had went and picked her up in her sleep and asked her to marry him, even though she was still not 16, she was 14. And she refused him, and she also told him that she wasn't interested in marrying him because she did not love him. He informed her that he loved her, and with that decided to take her. And he did several times, and then finally, as she got violent, he murdered her, cut her up, and put her in the river in pieces, never to be found. So, lack of evidence. Anyway, one of the cousins of the girl overheard him telling this story, and it seems they waited for about 2 weeks for him to sober up, captured him in his sleep, took him to a cove in the river. Now this is a cove about 12 foot deep. They took him to the river, and the young braves had buckets in a pickup truck completely full of lucky stones. Now, if you're not familiar with a lucky stone is a round stone that has been trapped underwater somehow, and the current has, through sand and time, bored a hole in the center, and it ends up being just a perfect little donut. And if you find one on the beach, I know you're thinking I'm crazy, but if you're looking for them, you'll find one day, if you're lucky enough, a lucky stone. These were buckets full of lucky stones. So the truck was full of them. The other pickup truck showed up with the tribal healer and this gentleman. Now, the gentleman had already been tried in the white man's court and found basically innocent for lack of evidence. But now the healer said, the medicine man said it was time to try him in the Indian court. And here's the story I got. They took the gentleman in about a 10 to 12 foot flat bottom boat, 4 people, the medicine man included. And the medicine man talked very slowly to him and said, now, whatever you do, calm down, believe that you did not do this, and tell yourself, I did not do this. Stay calm, and everything will be all right. Well, he took him in the boat. They took his clothing off of him, down to his underwear and started tying lucky stones on him with pieces of leather around his fingers, around his neck, around his arms, his legs, until there was probably 200 pounds of lucky stones tied to him. And he is panicking at this point. He says, "What are you going to do to me?" And he says, "We're going to let you down gently into the cove." And he said, "With all this stone on me, I will drown." And he said, "No, you won't. These are lucky stones. If you are innocent, they are your friend, and they will save you, and you can walk right out of this cove unharmed. And should you walk right out of this cove unharmed, you will be considered innocent by the native culture, and no one will ever speak ill or speak of this matter to you again as long as you live." Now, he panicked, and he confessed several times. He argued, he threatened, he screamed, he cried, he soiled himself, but the medicine man remained calm and said, "Please, tell yourself, tell everybody that you didn't do this. You're innocent, and these lucky stones will save you." They set him in the water very gently. The medicine man said, "Take a deep breath." Now this guy's panicking, but they let go of him, and he sunk like a rock. And I went to the person telling me the story, and I goes, how crazy is this? It doesn't make any sense. No one could survive 200 pounds of lucky stones tied to them. It's just not possible. And the storyteller to me said, think about it. If you're innocent and you're calm enough to take a deep breath, the lucky stones are your friend, because in the water that stone will only weigh not even a third of what it weighs outside, and it will hold you to the bottom of the cove. And when it holds you to the bottom of the cove and you have a good deep breath, you can walk right out of that cove perfectly safe. It took me a long time to understand this, but this guy sunk like a rock, and after about 8 bubbles, they spoke of him no more. This one really blew my mind, and like I said, it came from a reliable source, but the source is passed. So I thought I would pass it on to you. Take it for what it's worth. I'm Big House, Native American storyteller and story finder. Now, this is not my story. I'm just repeating it on this documentary so it's not lost forever. So take it as you will. Thank you very much. Sego. Or not.